It's raining in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And this is where you find out who your true friends are. When they say they're coming over to your house, some people in L.A. are like, it's raining. We're just going to stay home tonight. And you're like, okay. You say yes to that friend, right?
I get it. But then you're making kind of a note.
I get. You make a note, mental.
Yeah.
Not an actual note. Not like Bryant, you pull out your yellow legal pad.
No.
Okay.
Mental.
Andrew Whitworth said yes, and he's here, everybody.
I'm here, baby. Come on.
In the rain. That's friendship.
It's my favorite thing when it rains in California.
Is it really?
People act like, they can't even function. You can't move.
I mean,
in Louisiana, it rained every day. I'm used to it.
This is fine.
Yeah.
You are totally cool with it. But you know what? How long have you lived in Los Angeles, though?
This is 6 years now.
I mean, that's enough.
I'm starting to change.
You're starting to. But you're not like Tony Gonzalez, who needs to wear Gore-Tex when it dips below 50. I see how he reacts on Thursday night. Though. Okay, you're getting there. All right.
I'm getting softer.
Fitz is just taking his shirt off.
Maniac.
He's a maniac.
He's always up for taking his shirt off. Now we get chance every week for fans, for him to rip his shirt off.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's created a movement.
Does he
take it off?
Does he oblige? Does he?
No, I think it was a Buffalo thing. I think that was
it.
But I think he's got to understand now the people want what the people want.
He's a giver. Sometimes he gives too much, is your point. Thursday Night Footballs and longtime NFL player, as well as Super Bowl champion Walter Payton Man of the Year, Andrew Whitworth here on the program. Let's just dive directly into it. Jalen Hurts' comments after the Monday Night Football loss, talking about some of the players on the Eagles are not committed enough. That was his implication, and then he used the word committed multiple times, was asked, what does that mean? He's like, I don't have a dictionary here. What's your interpretation of his post-game comment?
I think being somebody like him who's always so eloquent after, he's one of those guys, I know for us when we've had him a couple times post-game, just what a great talker and communicator he is. In that moment, I think you've lost 3 in a row. You're really frustrated. He obviously played sick. You could tell by the way he was kind of carrying himself in that interview. He was hurting after just the adrenaline of playing through that game. I think it was more of an emotional thing than like something that really there's a lot to. I think he's just frustrated. And I think probably you could kind of tell after he said it, he tried to kind of back out of it at one point, of really explaining exactly what he meant. So I think it was more around emotion, but the frustration I think is when you're the quarterback and you're, the Philadelphia Eagles and what was expected of them this season, it all feels like it falls on you all the time. And so I think maybe there's just one of those moments where he's exhausted and he's thinking of how in the world do we get through this, and the emotion of committed. I don't even know if he really knew how he could explain it. But I think it was more of really the mode of what he felt in that moment, not necessarily something that says he feels like this team's not committed.
Because you are as well aware of the narrative as anybody else, being as plugged in as you are to talking about stuff every single week. It's been the Eagles, 10 wins, something's been off in almost every one of them. We haven't seen the dominant NFC champion team from last year that was boat racing people or taking care of business, extending leads in a way that they didn't last night. Mistakes defensively, they're not taking the football away nearly as much as they need to. So there's been something off. So for him to come out and say the word committed means that's been the issue all year long.
Yeah.
And something's up. And Philadelphia is now going to go on sports media, a mole hunt for which player is he referring to or group of players is he referring to. You're saying that's not what
I think they're definitely going to do that. I think that he was more probably talking from a place of emotion and being exhausted than something that he really felt in a particular area. But I think the biggest concerns for that football team are exactly what you just said. Not that they've not been as good, not that they keep kind of having these games, but that it's kind of the same things that keep coming up. And I think to me, when you look over a season, if a team repeats the same mistakes over and over again, you can bet it's usually how their season ends. We're going to come down to a narrative of either the secondary and how they've struggled or offensively just not being able to score when they need to score in these games. It's going to be the reason that their season's going to end without their, the thing they want most in that championship.
So do you believe the guy? So if you're saying Hurts was just speaking from an emotional point of view, and although this is uncharacteristic of him, saying things that he knows are going to rile up a media that is eager to find out what's wrong with this team, or a fan base that wants to hear what's wrong with this team because they've been wondering that question for 3 months. So you do believe the guys are in that locker room? that can fix this?
I think they are, just because it's not much different than last year. You still got a lot of guys that have played in this game for a long time, and sometimes teams need hey, let's all sit and refocus and say, hey, what are the little things that we need to be better at, and how can we all be better together? And I think the thing that people probably didn't give enough attention to is that you replaced both coordinators coming into this season, so there was going to be growing pains, and for whatever reason, they just haven't seemed to feel like at any point in the season you feel like, oh, man, we found this perfect marriage in the coordinators. And then last week, even the whole secrecy of changing the coordinator defensively and really how that was handled, I think that very interesting for that not to be something we didn't find out until close to the game, that, Patricia all of a sudden is now calling the defense. I think those kind of things, to me, they definitely send out a signal of, all right, I don't think everything's going that well right now inside the building, regardless of the football field, because communication seems to be lacking. And you could say Jalen Hurts is emotional in those moments, but also I think he comes from Nick Saban. He comes from programs that have won where sometimes you're sending a little message, right? And so I don't know that it was like, hey, I think people aren't committed, as much as a little message of, man, I need everyone to be committed to this thing because I feel like I just played sick. I just played exhausted. I'm tired. Gave it all I had. It wasn't good, but we've got to commit if we want to get to where we want to go.
Okay. Well, what you just said as well is interesting, is that perhaps the reason why it's off on offense, because the offensive line is outstanding.
Yeah.
Outstanding. And we just haven't seen those 250-yard rushing games that used to just steamroll everyone with Miles Sanders last year and the same guys in Gainwell and Boston Scott. Doesn't seem to be the same commitment to that, off of which the deep balls to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith will connect, or Goddard over the middle on some sort of play action is not as wide open, and that the issue may just be the guy that they're missing has the Colts in the 7th seed right now in Indianapolis as the HC of the Indianapolis Colts.
I said this 4 or 5 weeks ago to our producer Spoon, who and I was like, hey, I think it blows my mind. No one's saying a word about Shane Steichen, and it's like the Indianapolis Colts have a winning record. They're 6-5, I think, at this point. And I was like sitting there going, man, we got to start talking about this team. Like they're at 500. I don't think anybody in the NFL that's a fan, if you told them, hey, this team's 500 or over 500, be like, who? Like the Colts. They're a winning football team this year. I mean, the job he's done to think of, you're losing your rookie quarterback who you thought you were going to build things around this year, the Jonathan Taylor situation, how he's really calmed that down. He got the contract, everything. You never heard another word about it. And then every back that seems to step in this offense has a productive day. I just think he's done a tremendous job, and he's one of the tons of coaches I think you could argue should be in that Coach of the Year conversation.
I'm with you, man. I just saw him. I just called their game, Steelers-Colts, on Saturday, and we didn't even mention the defense because they got players all over the lot. The reason why, in many ways, Shaq Leonard was released, this kid, E.J. Speed, is all over the lot, and he doesn't even lead the league in tackles. That's Franklin.
Yeah.
And Buckner's up front. It's kind of funny. We were talking to Najee Harris before the game in our production meeting, and players just know players by numbers.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes you don't get deep into who's actually that guy. And we said, who are you circling on defense? And he goes 99. And somebody said DeForest Buckner, and he goes, is that Buckner?
That's the famous AD comment, right? About Deebo Samuel before he was famous. He called him 19.
Right.
That was Kurt, a huge stir. And it's like, no, Aaron Donald doesn't worry about what their names are.
And Kurt Warner was basically saying to us that is basically the way it is. Like, you just learn the numbers. Yeah. You're not getting deep into what the names are. And he's just like, I was a big Niner fan, and he's really good. I'm like, and then he put it together. Oh, that's 99. It was kind of funny. But the reason why I bring all that up is 99's there.
Yeah.
Okay. And they've taken the ball away 19 straight games, at least one takeaway. So who do you think wins the AFC South right now as we're sitting here?
Oh, man, I think that one's going to be interesting. I mean, Jacksonville has started to, fade. And you look at the Colts, it's like every week I'm like, all right, this is the week that they're going to kind of have one. They're going to lay an egg. And it's like, even if the game starts that way, they find a way to win these football games. So I think if you're Jacksonville right now, the one thing I think that plays in the Colts' favor, Jacksonville's starting to have those thoughts creep in their mind of, we started really well. Mm-hmm. We haven't been able to play as well as we played early in the season. That doubt starts to creep in. Whereas for the Colts, they're playing free. And I think the biggest thing I would say about Shane Steichen and that organization, and just when you watch him every week, it just seems like this. Like there's no reaction. You don't ever kind of feel like something dramatic's going on with this football team. They just feel like they just keep marching straight ahead. And I think if I'm Jacksonville, I think that's a football team right now that they're starting to feel that pressure of we can't make a mistake because this Colts team's going to catch us.
I've got Andrew Whitworth here on the Rich Eisen Show. You saw San Francisco week 3, right?
Yep.
You saw them early on Amazon. I just saw that.
But with Richard Sherman, I get to hear about every detail going on with the San Francisco 49ers every week. Trust me.
They're the best team in the league, right? Hands down.
It's not close. It's
right?
It's without question, it's not close. When they're fully healthy, they're better than anybody, and it's not even close.
Not even close, huh? So who's best equipped to take them out? Is it?
Well, I early in the year, unfortunately with the Bengals injuries, I predicted it was going to be a Niners-Bengals Super Bowl.
Hey, listen,
Jake
Brown, don't sleep on Jake Browning,
Don't sleep on Browning. But right now I've kind of pivoted to still in the AFC North. I've called a Ravens-Niners a rematch of Super Bowl 47. But in Vegas, the lights never go out, so we won't have to worry about it.
Look at him.
What I mean?
What a line.
Come on, baby.
What a line. Andrew Whitworth bringing his A game.
That's right.
Right, and we're seeing it Monday night,
We're
too.
going to see it Monday night. I think this is a little preview because, to me, what Lamar Jackson, this Ravens team, has been this year is, people are arguing, he didn't have the statistics he had when he was MVP, but they're a great football team defensively, offensively, the ways they can attack you on offense. They can do so many different things that I think they'll match up well with the Niners because they can play great defense and they can run the football, or they can kind of get into things where they spread you out and use Lamar and use his legs, and he's shown the ability this year to be a much better pocket passer under Monken. So I think that's a great matchup for them.
Let me give you one more. What about the Buffalo Bills?
They're
playing
hot.
They're hot, but they also look sustainable. And here's why. Number 4 is
Special.
playing. He's special. James Cook is playing like Christian McCaffrey.
Is there anybody
This
that
is
was
the way I'm looking at
happier on Monday than Josh Allen?
The fact that
For
he
one game,
didn't
I didn't have to do anything. I just went out there and I just played football.
By the way, Andrew, name me another time he could say that in his professional career. Seriously, since he starting for the Bills, name me another time where the team boat raced another team or just won. And he just said, all I had to do was just make the plays I had to make. The pressure was completely off him against Dallas when you thought he's going to have to be Superman. That's what we're talking about on game day morning. We talk about Superman versus Superman. He's going to have to put on his cape to win. Oh, that's James Cook. Oh, James Cook's wide open. Let me get him. Unreal.
Yeah, and I think on the flip side, what I just said about Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence feeling pressure, Josh Allen just won a game against one of the best teams in the NFL, didn't have to do anything. That takes it off of you, and you go, all right, I trust our plan. I trust what we're going to do, and now I'm going to play with some freedom. And how special Josh is, if they can continue to lean on this run game and let him be him, when Josh is free and playing that kind of style of football that he can, he's one of the rare guys back there with the football in his hands there is in this game.
Without a doubt. And if I'm the rest of the league, I am rooting hard for the Colts and the Bengals and the Browns. Keep winning, because that's the way you're going to keep Buffalo out, unless the Dolphins lose one of their next 2 and the Bills don't slip up against Easton Stick on Saturday and Bailey Zappi at home. They can stroll into Miami and get in that way as the 2 seed. By the way,
I think Fitzpatrick made this point last week, and I thought it'd be interesting, like to see a Buffalo-Miami showdown, to see maybe who's going to win that division. It's possible.
Last game of the year, I think that'll be the last game of the year.
To see where we all had Miami 6 weeks into the season,
right,
and we had Buffalo, and then now to see this matchup possibly be what's going to determine one of them's fate. It would be wild to see, because Josh Allen right now has got to be really happy with where that team's headed.
I mean, that right now the Bills are 2 back of the Dolphins. So if the Dolphins just once again slip up in either of the next 2 games, and you can't really even say slip up. I mean, you're playing Dallas and then the 1 seed in the AFC right now in Baltimore. So the Dolphins are sitting here thinking we have a shot at the 1 seed. But if they lose one of those 2, then that means they will wind up hosting the Bills in the final week of the season for the right to play a home game, make the playoffs as a division champ as well. And so Buffalo may have, wildly, no shot at the wild card because everybody keeps winning, but they have a shot at the 2 seed. I can't recall a situation
it's
like
a
that.
wild year. I mean, you look at it both sides. The NFC, AFC, it's crazy, all the matrix of who can get in and who can't and how they may get in, but only by winning the division. I think it's pretty wild. I mean, you think about 2 weeks ago, we were talking about Jacksonville as possibly the 1 seed going forward. And now we got a situation where they're in trouble getting walked down and getting knocked out of this thing.
Mm-hmm. Last one for you here before we'll take a break and talk about the final 2 games on Amazon, because they're fascinating in many different ways. It's this week, Saints and Rams, and I assume you have some access to the Rams. And then it's Jets and Browns. You know, Joe Flacco.
Lake Erie, baby, here we come.
And so that's something that you might see. Aaron Rodgers versus Joe Flacco. Who knows?
Ooh.
We'll see what happens. Although, are you monitoring what Rodgers is saying right now, Christopher?
Yeah, they're just talking about how it's the North Pole at Pat's studio.
Okay. So before we take a break, though, I'd love to get your thoughts on the Chiefs and the. It's funny how it's all being boiled down to Kadarius Toney, because he is the personification of what is wrong with the Chiefs offense and potentially unfixable about the Chiefs offense. And it's just one man. I get it. It is a team game. But your 2 cents on that being the indication of the Chiefs' ability to win it again right now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think it's similar to what we just said about the Eagles. When you keep seeing the same narrative keep showing back up, it's like you can't knock it out and say, all right, we've gotten past this throughout your season. I think for them offensively, the lack of production and then, just drops and mistakes by this receiver skill group has continued to be over and over again. They can't beat the narrative. And I think that usually ends up being something that dooms you in the end. And so I think for this team, they need a Josh Allen Buffalo Bills turnaround at some point where they get hot, or you feel like inevitably they're going to end their season because of the things that have been who they are all season long.
Well, the schedule does provide that runway to get hot.
They're
taking on Vegas to start the Christmas Day triple header. Then after that, Kansas City has Cincinnati in their house.
Watch out.
I know. I mean, the way
Watch
Jake
out.
Browning is playing, that may be the one that costs them any shot at getting high enough in the standings where all you need is the 1 seed to lose and they wind up hosting a championship game again. And then they're at the Chargers, which we all know is just going to be a roll the football out sort of thing, one would think. So that's possible, but you're already hearing Andy, they're not benching Toney. Like they're going to keep rolling with him until he gets straight and or not. That's the way I'm looking at it. And it's frustrating people like, Chris, you've been saying,
Yeah.
you got to sit him.
You can't play him. He's going to cost you a game. He's already cost you 2. Why are you giving the chance that he might blow a playoff game or maybe the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I don't, to me, that's probably the thing that is stuck out the most that's agitating is like eventually at some point there has to be some repercussions for letting us down in a game. Not that, hey, all right, we still believe in you. We're still going to work with you and we're still going to plan to have you up and available, but we're going to keep you off the field because clearly mentality-wise, he hasn't been able to handle that. After the mistake last week for him to still come out and blame the ref, it's just, blows my mind. Like, hey, just take accountability and move on. Who cares, really, right? At the end of the day, move on from the mistake. But it continues the same topics in its defense. Instead of proof on the field, it's more of like, hey, just keep defending themselves. But to me, this is the epitome of I see better than I hear. Like, they've got to go out and show it on Sundays and Mondays for us to believe it.
Well, then put your helmet back on instead of your analyst answer that I appreciate you giving me right there. You're in the locker room. Do you say something to him? As you're a leader, you got the C on your chest. Do you go up to Kadarius Toney and sit him down or talk to him or just
I would
stay
imagine
away?
In that locker room with Travis and some of those guys, somebody has done that. I think at the end of the day, though, guys are responsible for their own, behaviors in the sense of how they handle the media, how they handle questions. You really can't address that per se. You can address, hey, when we go on the football field, this is how we're going to play. I think that him playing or not, though, and being involved in the offense, that's more of coaching and whether they decide to put him out there. I've always said this, you can't, as a coach, you can't expect me to police a locker room that you won't punish. So, in other words, if you say, oh, well, the player should step in, well, yeah, but if I tell him, hey, dude, you're not playing for us and you put him in the game, then I lose all credibility, right? So the coach has to make the stance first and say, hey, this is the standard of how we're going to play football as a Kansas City Chief. And then the player can back that up. And that's really how that has to go because inevitably the coaches are the ones who get to make those decisions, not the players. And it needs to stay in that line.
Where do you keep the Walter Payton Man of the Year award? Is there in your office somewhere?
It's a constant battle, Rich. My wife wants me to keep it in my office. I don't like it being anywhere near my background on a Zoom or anything, so I like to keep it in kind of our family room up in the front of the house.
By the way, it's a sculpture. It's a piece.
It's like 40 pounds.
I don't want to get involved
heavy.
in a marital issue, but
it's okay.
You could say to your wife, "That's a sculpture. It's a piece of art." Honestly.
Listen, there's a lot of decorating issues. We've had Christmas lights up for like 2 months. It's just
okay.
There's a lot of issues.
That's aggressive.
Yeah. It's
so
aggressive.
as soon as
Halloween ends, next day, Halloween comes down.
Day.
Yeah, and I'm a guy, like, I don't even watch Christmas movies till the week of Christmas. So I just have to, like, do this when I walk in the house every day.
And go for it. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
No.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Whitworth officially just shoots up the charts of one of my favorite guests of all time.
Yeah.
It's a
quick answer, too.
It's not a Christmas movie.
Christmas movie.
It is. No.
It's an action movie that takes place during Christmas.
A Christmas action movie. That's
right.
So what about every other movie that takes place during Christmas? Those aren't Christmas movies either?
Like what?
Like It's a Wonderful Life?
All of them.
No, but there's a certain essence about a Christmas movie about
like what? Redemption.
Yeah.
Oh, then what's Die Hard about?
It's about
Hans Gruber falling off the building.
Yeah, it's taking out Hans
blown
Gruber
up at the end.
No, that's not what it's about.
You lose your job.
That's like the third storyline. It's redemption. He's saving his family. He's going to get back his wife named Holly.
Okay,
gotcha.
You're going down the Jake Tapper checklist here.
Well, Jake has all the only arguments I need.
That are wrong.
Not a Christmas movie.
Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Whitworth, just a round of applause.
Yes.
I think we should just spend the next 20 minutes just clapping for him.
Yeah, I love
like it's the
Whit.
Kennedy
I
honors.
can't clap for that. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Andrew Whitworth here in studio. Part of the reason why you can be in studio on this day is Thursday Night Football is right here in Los Angeles.
Home game,
just
baby.
Up the road. And Saints and Rams, both teams 7-7. What is Sean McVay's secret sauce, man? What? Give me some insight.
I think one of the things that really separates him is his ability to communicate. When you walk in a room and you see head coaches and we talk about, man, what do they like in the room? His ability to really, I think, relate to everybody in it, communicate very clearly what he wants and expects out of guys. I thought, really most impressive things in my time with him is really that there's no rules. Like, he's not some guy that's got rules written on the board, like, hey, you have to be here, you have to do this, you have to wear this or that. It's understood because the way he communicates the priorities and the things that are important to him, he doesn't have to write them down on a wall and say you have to do these things. He can communicate it in a way where you walk out of there and there's a sense of pride of like, I want to be a Los Angeles Ram. I want to do things a certain way. And I think that's really what has been his thing, that he's been able to do well. And then you look at this year, I think it's awesome. Like, kind of reinvented a little bit of who he is and who his offense is.
Like, what is that though? What's
he
what exactly? Because he
wise.
said that he's been on the show and he's just like, he took stock last year and he gets introspective up to the point until giving a detail about what he's actually being truly introspective about, other than he's just like, last year was tough, last year was difficult, I looked at the way I did things and I had to make some changes and I made them. And it looks like it's working. That's for sure.
Well, I think you look at it staff-wise even. He went, with a lot of guys that younger staff, a lot of new guys in their positions. Mm-hmm. He wanted energy and just this influx of passion and energy in the locker room of this youthful exuberance. Like, we may not have an answer for every single thing, but we're going to go find it, and we're going to play fast and physical every football game, and that's going to be who we are. You look at it, and I've said this even over our time there, San Francisco has always dominated Los Angeles Rams. Me personally, I'll say it. They out-physicaled us. They played with more passion in those games than we did.
Right.
That was their style of football team, and it's why now, since they're so talented, they're so good, is that's really what they were built on. I think he, in this last year, has reinvented the Rams to be that style of player. Just like when I watched Puka play for the first few times, the first thing I told Les Snead was, he's our Deebo Samuel. Like that, we've literally created, you watch him run after the catch, you watch him when he makes catches, always falling forward, always giving it to the defender when he catches the football. Like, he's a young guy, but that's going to be who he is for this offense. And more 12, more using the tight ends and a lot of these motions and kickouts and physicality in the run game. I think you're going to see that they are slowly but surely kind of evolving into more of a style of what the Niners play a little bit. Not necessarily that schematically they call the same plays, but that kind of style. We're going to come out and be physical and kind of beat you with the passion, energy, speed we play the game with. Not always X's and O's and all those things, changing math, all this type stuff. The mentality we play with is going to be who we are.
He's a revelation. Kyron Williams as well. And Cup goes down, and those two kids start playing like it was the Super Bowl year, and the same thing for the quarterback. Also, no, I know you're tight with Matthew, but this has got to be. I mean, he's not a spike the football type guy. Certainly when you're 7-7, also, and you still have some work to do. But this year has been it's quieted a lot of people, and I'm wondering how, what not for you to speak for him, but what do you think he's feeling? What can you
I think
communicate
he
with
is
us right now?
loving football more than he's ever loved it probably right now. Now, physically, obviously, when you get older, it hurts. And he's been through some stuff this year.
Right.
But I think there starts to be an appreciation of your impact on a room and a group and just getting to go out there as their leader every week that you start to have that really kind of makes you play loose and have fun and enjoy being around guys. Because I know for me, when I was 40 playing left tackle, the energy of the young guys was exciting to me to go out and play, if anything, for those guys to go take the field with them and be like, I can keep up with them, but also I can help lead them. And I think that's what Matthew's playing like. He's playing like a guy who just is loving playing the game. And I remember being there the last week of training camp, going to talk to him, and it's like, hey, I know what everybody's saying. Where are you at with, like, where y'all going to be this year? And him just giving me that little smirk and the eyes and that smile he has of, like, you just know when Matthew's up to something and he's about to wing it, he's about to throw a whole shot or make some aggressive throw. That's almost the same look he would give you in a huddle, like you knew he's about to do something. He gave me that look, and he's like, we're going to be all right. And just that confidence he had in that little second of being in the locker room together, I was like, I think this team could be more than what people think. And it's fun to watch them right now, 7-7, and they got it's in their hands how they finish this season, whether they make the playoffs, and could be right up there with one of the best jobs Sean McVay's ever done as a head coach and Matthew Stafford as a quarterback to get this football team, as young as it is, to the playoffs.
And we have the playoff picture up on the screen, perfect, because that's where I wanted to go. It's like we're one cohesive unit right here on the show, production wise, because you take a look at the way things are going. Okay, Nick Mullins for the Vikings, and they take on the Lions twice in the next 3 weeks, and so it's possible if the Rams and the Saints obviously have a ton to play for. The NFC South is way up for grabs, and let's just say the Rams make it, and they're the 6th seed, and they go to Detroit. You just made the noise, right? Because that's Goff there, and Goff is there because Stafford's there, and they play they're standing in each other's way. The revenge of the X's.
It's like they're both X's. You don't get this very often.
How wild would that be? I think
it's one of those things like in the NFL, it's like everyone's got to be rooting for this to happen. I mean, for everything this game would be, it'd be so cool to watch, just the moments for both of them, like to face your old team in golf in the playoffs and for Stafford to face a franchise that he was a part of for so long.
But they did him a favor, right? Like for golf, it might be more of I'll show you. Oh, yeah. But how do you think, Nick, I'll just let you speak for Stafford one more time. What do you think? Do you think he'd rather face somebody else? I mean,
no, I think he would enjoy that one too much. I think I would give the edge.
Back to Detroit?
I think I would give a little bit of edge from a freedom standpoint to the Rams, because for Matthew, that's just icing on the cake. He's going to be playing loose as can be. There's no loss there, right? You won a Super Bowl. You get to go back to a place that he really left. He asked to leave in a good place. Like, I've always loved this place. Him and Kelly were very involved in the community there, everything else. Whereas for Jared Goff, I think that's almost a little bit of a nightmare situation, because it's like, man, for him to come back with this former team and beat you in your place, that's more stressful, I would think, from that side of it than Matthew's side.
Look at that. And then one last, what do you think question on this front is potentially standing in the Rams' way of making it and making something like that potentially happen are the 49ers in the final week. Now, let's just assume, and I know what that word usually is infused with, let's just assume they've got that 1 seed wrapped. Do you think they're going to play their guys to keep the Rams out, like spit a spiteful breath
I don't think they like each other enough to lay down. I would think they would, but I think Kyle, we got to do that to the Rams. We got to not let them in, I think. But
keep
at the
them
same
out
time,
in the same. Okay.
That could come back to bite you. You get one of your players hurt. You get, you got to look at the first game they played. San Francisco didn't really get a hold of the game until late in the second half.
Right.
So, you get into a battle that you're going to have to unload everything you got to win.
But you're going to keep these guys sat for 2 weeks. and let the Rams in the
So
tournament.
I think it's going to be interesting.
They're the ones who knocked you out from the NFC Championship game, as you very well know yourself. You've got a ring in
I do.
in your
And
house.
you know what's crazy, too, is even like y'all were talking about earlier, the Drew Lock situation in Seattle, like they've got winnable games. So if the Rams lose that game, the Seahawks get in. So it's interesting, that division. I got a feeling, though, I'm gonna say this.
All three of them make it?
I think all three of them make it. And the AFC North may have an opportunity for all three to make it.
So that would be Ravens, Bengals, I'm assuming, not the Steelers?
And the Browns.
Okay, and the Browns.
Yeah, I'm not going Steelers.
Okay, perfect transition here to the Browns. Kevin Stefanski is not being mentioned for Coach of the Year very much right now. And the job that he has done there with 4 different starting quarterbacks, all of them having won, and Nick Chubb getting knocked out, and they've been out without Ward for how long? I've lost track how long they've been without one of their best defensive players. And Myles Garrett balling out. And this team with Flacco now throwing it all over the lot, having a chance to, potentially, I don't, off the top of my head, I don't think making the playoffs is a division winner, but having a chance to being a 5 seed. I mean, they could beat the AFC South winner in one game. And how?
Go to Baltimore?
I don't know. I mean, like, why not, right?
I mean, we'd have another one, another revenge.
This is real, isn't it? Aren't the Browns
I mean, you
here?
look at that defense, they're real. So I don't care any offense that plays them. You look what happened to San Francisco when they played them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that defense is real. It doesn't matter how good you are on offense.
Because you're seeing them,
you're
seeing them in that's the final Thursday night game, Jets at Browns.
Yeah, so I mean, that's going to be a challenge for any team in the playoffs, no matter what your seeding is. And then offensively, I think Joe Flacco fits who they want to be really well. Guy can sling it still. You look at the play action game, they can build off of that running game. I think he really fits who they could be, and be dangerous. Play great defense, run the football well, and take a couple shots and hurt you. And so I think for them, I think Stefanski should be listed. But you look at it, even in that division, between the job him and Zach Taylor have done for the Bengals to be where they are, losing Joe Burrow. You talk about a team that everyone just put on, like Mahomes, right? This is Joe Burrow. Like, the Bengals are good just because of Joe Burrow. What they've been able to do with Jake Browning, I think it's another, like Zach Taylor, what a freaking coaching job, right? You've had guys in and out of the lineup all season. Joe goes down, you think the season's over.
That said, I mean, Browns are a totally different category, with all due respect.
Yeah, I agree.
With all due respect, it's Deshaun Watson, then it's P.J. Walker, then it's DTR, and then it's now let's get Joe Flacco off the couch. And he's running the offense, with the exception of Watson in that game in Baltimore. He's running that offense better than any of them. This offense has looked far more
it's different,
threatening
for sure.
and vertical, and the run game is just as stout, and the defense is taking care of business. I mean, Stefanski as Coach of the Year should get some serious consideration right now, and he's won it before, which might get people to think, well,
and nobody wants to block Myles Garrett.
One.
So
no, honestly, and I'm straight up with you. And then that night, I mean, the narrative will be on your final Thursday night game is here's a team making the playoffs. Okay, Cleveland has – who does Cleveland have this week? Let's see here. They have in front of them this week, they've got a game at Houston. That's a huge one. Wow.
Big game.
Okay, let's just say they win that one. You got a 10-win team coming into your house, right? Or you're going into the house of the 10-win team. And here comes the Jets. Where their season goes completely kablooey within 5 snaps. They couldn't figure out a damn thing with really talented players. I know their offensive line got really banged up, but for them to just be eliminated going into week 16, and Aaron Rodgers just said on Pat's show that he doesn't believe he's going to be medically cleared. He's not 100%.
He's not 100%. No.
All right, so you're going to probably see Trevor Siemian in the house, or maybe it could be Zach Wilson again. I don't know. So one team couldn't figure it out. Their season's totally lost. The other team with 4 guys has 10 wins potentially. If not, there's still 9 wins. Going to the playoffs.
The Browns lost a lot of offensive linemen too.
So
not an
right,
excuse,
exactly.
Right?
But that's
12
the point.
out of 14 games, the Jets have only got 1 touchdown or less.
How does that happen, right? I mean, what the hell?
That's what I mean. I think to me, you have to say, I understand he's his guy, but Nathaniel Hackett, it's 2 years of you saw what happened in Denver with that offense, who they've been this season with Sean Payton. I said, you really think about it, that Jets-Broncos game, you might have won that small battle, but the overall war of kind of, even though he said it out, he shouldn't have said it. What Sean Payton said has come to life. Like he's done a tremendous job with the Denver Broncos. They are a much different team than they were a year ago. And Nathaniel Hackett, this is 2 years in a row of abysmal offense. I mean, you made one team worse in the Broncos, and then you've come here and not been able to figure out a single thing with the Jets offensively to do any kind of production. Just 1-2 games where you could say, all right, man, we got something to build off of. Just hasn't happened. And so I think, to me, it's two totally different stories of an example of what coaching can do in a situation where you can find ways to win with a great defense, because the teams are very similar. The Jets defensively and the Browns defensively, that's how they're led.
Right.
To not to be able to find any way to produce offensively in these games, just in a consistent stretch.
And Browns lost their running back to a knee injury this year. Jets got theirs back from last year.
Yeah.
And Dalvin Cook. And Garrett Wilson.
It's a great game to put them side by side and say, what went wrong?
Well, not great for the Jets, because this is a perfect example. Like, look at this team. And Flacco used to be
personal, Rich.
Honestly, Flacco won a game for the Jets in that building week 2. I guarantee you Spoon's going to have that video for you for your pregame show. They're probably cutting the video right now. And if not, cut it, Spoon. That's coming. That is absolutely going to be part of your pregame show.
Are you about to say committed?
I'm committed. I'm committed to just.
This feels emotional.
No.
This feels emotional.
No.
Very personal.
I should be committed.
There we go.
For still being a Jets fan?
Yeah.
Yeah, you should.
But that's me. I am who I am, and I'm because one day at some point, as I said, the football gods will stop kicking me in the nards over this whole thing, and so, but nobody is pulling a code red on Hackett. That ain't happening.
No, Aaron Rodgers did tell Pat that he still believes in Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, Nathaniel Hackett, called Saleh a fantastic coach. Did say he doesn't think next year will be his last year.
There you go.
Wanted to play 2 years for the Jets, considers this a lost season.
There you go. So it'll run back, and there'll be there's a whole bunch of Jet fans who are like, look at the Browns. Look at them. Look at the Bengals. Look at the Colts. Look at these teams that not only didn't fall apart, but actually stayed enough together to make a playoff run, and they're going to make the playoffs with teams that maybe aren't as talented roster-wise as the Jets are.
Yeah.
And that the coaching staff should eat it because of that, but they will not when Aaron Rodgers says that, because Woody Johnson is going to run it back, and everybody's coming back, and that's going to be a nonstop 24/7, 365 sports talk conversation in New York City. And I love Saleh, too.
Yeah.
I love him, too. And we just don't know. There's an iceberg and there's a tip. And I think there's a huge iceberg that he's tried to keep together.
Yeah, I think Saleh's done all he can. It's a tough situation. But I think even if Aaron comes back next year and they're good on offense, I'm going to say it's because of Aaron Rodgers. Because I think the proof is there that that was going to be him if they were going to be good offensively. But do you feel a little better now? I mean, you kind of get some of that out?
No, I mean, I don't. But I appreciate you checking in with me. That's why you're Walter Payton Man of the Year right there. You care about others. You're a human. You care about humanity, and I'm part of that race.
Have a good day.
Yeah, thank you. You're one of my favorites, Andrew. Love watching you kick it and kick ass. You're
Appreciate
awesome.
it, brother.
You and your team get better every week.
I appreciate
and it's great to see you. Have a great time here in Los Angeles, and then in Cleveland, and then come back. Let's hang during the postseason.
I'll be ready.
Too.
I got nothing to do.
That's great. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.